we want to bring in Republican Congressman Bob Onder of Missouri, a member of the House Judiciary and Education Committees. We want to thank you very much for joining us today.
Great to be back.
All right, so Democrats are turning up their grassroots movement efforts. Today, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is taking his nationwide town hall tour back to his home state. Tens of thousands are actually gathering at these anti-Trump rallies. And, you know, it's kind of similar to the Republicans' Tea Party movement that gained traction during the Obama years. So I guess when we take a look at this, are Republicans worried that they're going to lose some ground with the everyday American with all that we're seeing going on?
Well, I really do not think we're losing ground. I think we are fulfilling our campaign promises, which included cutting waste, fraud, and abuse from government, which included securing our border, which included renewing the 2017 Trump tax cuts, restoring sane energy policy. And what we're seeing in Republican town halls is that paid professional activists are packing our town halls and trying to shout us down. No, I think our policies are overwhelmingly favorable. One of your lead stories, women's sports, Trump visiting the NCAA. That is an 80% issue, that women's sports should be protected and that men shouldn't be cheating and endangering the safety of women. And yet the Democrats are just all in on the idea of men being able to decimate these sporting events. So I think the American people overwhelmingly are in favor of what we're doing. And we've promised for generations to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. And of course, the people benefiting from that waste, benefiting from that fraud, they're screaming the loudest.
So are you going to go to any of these town halls? Because I guess Republicans are being advised not to go. Is that right?
Well, what I've been doing is teletown halls, and I did one a couple of weeks ago, and I took 15, 20 questions. Every single question was antagonistic, and I was happy to answer those questions. And questions about the Democrat demagoguery about Medicaid cuts, questions about silly nonsense about DOGE. I'm happy to take those questions, but to create a media event for the far left where they create this narrative that somehow that what President Trump and what the Republican Congress is doing is unpopular, I'm not going to participate in that circus. But I do in-person events almost every day. It's just that letting the leftist activists know that I'm going to be at a particular place at a different time is just counterproductive.
Understand that, but I do want to ask you, people are losing their jobs, thousands of people, and people are very, very concerned. So what do you tell them? Is that part of what you're hearing when you attend events in public?
Let's take, for instance, the cuts in the Veterans Administration Department. Not a single doctor or nurse at the VA has lost their job. Not any forward-facing employee, even receptionists or clerks, have lost their job. Everyone has been a provisional employee, and anyone whose supervisor, who they themselves think that their position is an essential employee, they can appeal that decision to lay them off. And most of these folks are getting generous severance packages. Look, if we don't think that the federal government is bloated and has way too many employees, then we're not going to be able to get our budget situation in order. We have a $37 trillion debt right now. Every man, woman, and child in the United States owes over $100,000 and no plan to pay it off. Finally, we're doing something about containing spending to save our children and our grandchildren's future. And it's not fun.
Understood. I do want to, while I have you, I have to ask you about Elon Musk's visit to the Pentagon. I want to get this in because President Trump is strongly pushing back against a New York Times report today that Musk was set to get a briefing on supposed war plans with China. So what did you make of that report, and would it be appropriate for Musk to be briefed on these kinds of things despite any potential conflict of interest? How do you see it?
Well, the administration denies that Elon Musk had any kind of high-level briefing. I don't believe he has a high-level security clearance. But DOGE and Musk looking at the Defense Department and looking at waste in our defense budget, that is entirely appropriate. My father was a career government auditor for the Defense Contract Audit Agency, and I will tell you, waste, fraud, abuse were rampant in the Department of Defense. You know, an example is that Pete Hegseth announced that they will be canceling contracts and grants worth $580 million, including $280 million for HR software that was almost 800% over budget. That has nothing to do with the readiness of our armed forces. It has nothing to do with the safety and security of our servicemen and women abroad. That has everything to do with cutting out bloat and contracts.
All right. You know, if Hunter Biden's business ties to U.S. ally Ukraine were a cause for concern, let's just start there. Should Republicans apply the same scrutiny to Elon Musk, who has financial and political ties to U.S. adversaries like China and Russia? That's been one of the main points we've heard this week.
Certainly anyone who owns or runs a business interest as large as Elon Musk's. He sells Teslas all over the world. Starlink reaches all over the globe. Certainly anyone like that is going to have business interests in every country of the world. But no, if Elon Musk has not gone through the appropriate security clearances and has an appropriate interest in a given piece of classified information, he shouldn't have access to it, no.
Let's talk about the Department of Education. President Trump taking his first step towards dismantling the DOE by signing that executive order this week that we all watched. However, the president cannot completely eliminate the department without congressional approval. That's a really important point that we want to continue to hammer in. And I just got to ask you, what do you say to education advocates who are concerned this move could be harmful to low-income or rural students? There's a lot of concern on the table here.
Oh, sure. Look, part of that is correct, that we cannot completely eliminate all of the functions of the Department of Education without congressional action. The Department of Education was passed back during the Carter administration. Every Republican president has pledged to end the Department of Education. President Trump is finally doing it. I strongly agree with President Trump that the experiment of federalizing education in the United States, especially K through 12 education, has been an abysmal failure. And, fiscally, what happens is that we take tax dollars from the states, including my own Missouri. We send it to the federal government. It comes back with strings, not really strings, Laura, but chains and shackles attached that have bloated the cost of public education in the United States. In the last 20 years, students and teachers have increased by about 5%, principals and assistant principals by about 45%, and other bureaucrats by 85%. This is a waste. The 11% of K-12 education that comes from the feds is far outweighed by the cost of the bureaucracy.
All right. And before I let you go, I'm glad you brought up your home state, because I want to ask you how your state is recovering after deadly tornadoes tore through Missouri last week. And we were covering that last weekend when I was here on the anchor desk. What has the recovery been like?
Yeah, it was a horrible storm, tragic storm. 13 people died in Missouri. There was hail up to 2 inches in the Kansas City area. Fortunately, my district in central Missouri was relatively spared, although a big chunk of my roof blew off. I think we're recovering very well. I've been on daily or every other day calls with Governor Keogh. We've enlisted FEMA with our request for an emergency declaration, which I think we will get. But we are recovering, but it has been a blow to the state. And anytime a storm takes lives, it's a horrible thing.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you'll come back and give us another update. Congressman Bob Onder, thank you very much.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.